Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager, who is looking dapper as always.
Thank you. You as well with that Texas Tech Red Raider outfitter gear, I believe.
I'll let you promo it. Go ahead. That's right.
Well, that's about the best I can do.
Well, he's not wrong as usual. This hoodie, this hat comes from Red Raider Outfitter, our gracious sponsor of this channel. The Red Raider Outfitter Rockin' pregame radio show and many other of our endeavors. I'm not sure who your sponsor is, but they're doing a heck of a job for sure.
Self-sponsored.
Speaking of, there you go. Speaking of doing a heck of a job, Texas Tech football, 49-0 at West Virginia. I don't know how much time we want to spend talking about it. They crushed them. They handled business. You and I both did our own things, video and Jaeger shots, talking about it. They handled business. Now they're number 4 in the college football playoff rankings, and they got a matchup with number 11 BYU, a rematch of that game here earlier in November against BYU in the Big 12 championship. So now, if they go 1-0 this year, it would be this week it would be to win the Big 12 championship for the first time ever, the first outright title since 1955, I believe.
Yes. So, in some ways it feels like, if you win the regular season, which Texas Tech did,
yeah,
to me, that should be the Big 12 title. That should be a conference title, but that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Technically, you got to win this thing. It technically counts quite a bit. In the record books, you got to win this game to win and so, yeah, we're talking about since 1955. That is so long, and there are a lot of people around here who want this badly.
And you're one of them, right? I mean, Lubbock native and Texas Tech grad, all that.
That's just too long of a dry spell. That's, if you can believe it, that's 12 years before I was born.
Wow. No, that really puts it in picture. Paints a picture.
There were dinosaurs out roaming the Caprock, man.
Depends on who you ask. Be careful. But no, it's a huge stage and a huge opportunity for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, it is. So, so far this team has done a really good job handling their business, not allowing any distractions to affect them. We've seen situations where you say, well, this could be a trap game. This could be a letdown. Maybe they'll overlook them, something like that. And that just hasn't happened. They've come out and they've absolutely just wiped people out when people were nervous. There were people who were nervous about the West Virginia game.
Yeah.
It was 49-0.
49. It could have been 70-0.
So Joey gets off the accelerator pretty quick. It kept it somewhat less embarrassing for the Mountaineers. So, there's no reason to believe that Texas Tech won't come out guns blasting and ready to go for this game and take care of business once more.
Yeah, and Texas Tech, I believe last time I saw is 12.5-point favorites. And speaking of Coach McGuire, he just got a 7-year extension, new contract. We're going to talk about that more in another video, but it definitely was worth mentioning.
Didn't Sataki get it?
So did Kalani Sataki. Yeah,
two happy coaches, right?
Yeah, so apparently it helps to get to the Big 12 championship a whole lot in terms of millions of dollars. And then not just that, both guys, especially Sataki, because I think a lot of things were already in place for Tech clearly in McGuire, but I think he really improved some things in terms of the investment, which was already pretty high for BYU. So kudos to him. And, I think BYU and Tech are set up to possibly play this game in future years. I really believe that. But this week, Joe, what is like the key matchup? Like I said, 12.5-point favorites, 29-7 in that first game earlier in November. What's some key matchup or keys to the game for Texas Tech?
Yeah, well, these teams played a month ago right over there.
Right behind us, yep.
And we know the outcome, 29-7. And Texas Tech they were the better team. And nothing has changed between then and now. These teams are the same teams.
Right.
So Tech is still the better team.
Right.
It follows. Here's the deal. BYU is going to come out with a certain amount of desperation.
Sure.
Because now both teams obviously want to win the Big 12 title, but in BYU's case, they've got to win this game to have any assurance of making the playoffs. And if they do win it, they're in.
They're in, yeah.
If they don't, well, maybe not. So Texas Tech is not in that boat. Even if they lose, assuming it's a reasonably close game. Yeah, you'll drop several spots, but you'll still make the playoffs with very little doubt, I don't think. So BYU is going to come out and play with a certain sense of desperation, and desperation means effort.
Yeah.
You come out and you're trying so hard to win. Now, Texas Tech has just simply got to come out and kind of match that effort, and match that intensity. The two teams are still physically the same. Got the same coaching staffs, too. The one variable that could switch is what's going on between the ears of these players.
Yeah.
And so Texas Tech has just got to make absolutely sure. We've said this before, but they just got to be dialed in. They got to be focused. They got to come out excited to play. And if they do that, then it's going to be good for the Red Raiders. Now, I think one thing that is going to happen in this game is BYU knows they have to know that they can't just line up and run the ball at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
They tried that.
Yeah.
It didn't work. LJ Martin, great running back.
Yeah.
They got an excellent offensive line, but they're not just going to be able to run it against Texas Tech. So I think you're going to see them try to throw the ball more. Because you got to score a heck of a lot more than you did in that first game.
Oh, yeah.
To have any shot at winning. So, and Bachmeier, the freshman quarterback, he's got a QB rating 144. I mean, he can sling the ball a little bit. So I think you got to try that. And I think you got to take some gambles defensively for BYU as well. A lot of blitzing, try to create turnovers, maybe aggressive man-to-man coverage back there. Try to get to Baron Morton and affect him even more than you already did. So, Texas Tech's coaching staff and players have got to be ready for that sort of thing. Expecting, you remember when Peter McNeely fought Mike Tyson? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that was right after
briefly.
Tyson's first fight after he got out of prison.
Yes.
Well, McNeely, what does he do? He just goes charging across the ring, throwing haymakers left and right. That was his only hope.
Yeah.
And so you got to be ready for a bunch of haymakers for BYU. I think they're going to throw caution to the wind, and it's going to be kind of wild from that side of things.
Yeah, a couple of things that are different. Not a lot's different. Two guys that were in that game but were really banged up that are critical to each team. LJ Martin, you could tell he wasn't his usual self. I think Tech had something to do with it, but also that shoulder was really, I think, hurting him some. Well, hurt him a lot, but I think hurting his performance. That being said, Tech's rush defense still is what it is. I think Tech is the better team in terms of fighting in a phone booth, is the analogy I always like to use. That is BYU's strength, but Tech is just stronger in that area. And then Baron Morton is the other guy for Tech who was still really banged up, but clearly has more mobility, can push off on that leg a lot more than he could before. I mean, we saw that against West Virginia, and we saw that some against UCF. I mean, clearly he's healthier. So that kind of evens each other out. And then also the venue is different. I mean, it's still in Texas, but it's not in West Texas. There's going to be tens of thousands of Red Raider fans. There's going to be a lot of BYU fans there as well. The one thing I like is that I don't know how many of the BYU players have played at Jarret before. I really don't. But several of the Tech players have. And of course, Joey McGuire has coached there several times in some pretty big games, including some state championship games. So that's still, just on a personal note, I've covered more games in that stadium than anywhere else, including the Jones, just because I used to cover high school, college, and NFL there back in the day. Used to almost set up a cot. So, and they treat us well. I know a lot of people say this or that negatively. And yes, I am a Wounded the Tomb Cowboys fan, but what a terrific venue in every way. The press box, just the stadium, the field, everything. It's a grand stage. I'm really excited for these players and just this whole program that they get to play a game of this magnitude against a quality opponent in one of the greatest, stadiums that the sport has to offer. So that's really exciting. I just think when I look at this matchup, Texas Tech is stronger than what BYU is at their best, at their strengths. And then Tech has more versatility and speed. You look at an indoor facility like that as opposed to an outdoor in the winter, and it really highlights speed. Well, I think Tech's faster. Don't get me wrong. BYU has some speed, especially at linebacker in some spots, but it's not like those guys are faster than a Cam Dickey or a Jacoby Williams. You know what I mean? So I still think those matchups will hold out in terms of the dynamic playmakers. Now, what's interesting is that while Tech dominated that first game, mind you, they left a lot of points on the table. Now, part of that is because that's what BYU does. I think they're top 10, like 7 or 8 in terms of red zone defense. And Tech, that's one of the things that they're not like top 10 or top 5 in the entire country and leading the Big 12. And so that is something, again, we highlighted that going into that game. It proved true. In the end, it didn't matter because Tech's defense was so dominant and the offense did enough. But in a game that could be closer, like you said, if BYU gets a couple of nice breaks or a couple of those early haymakers land, then what Tech does or a possible improvement in the red zone could be key.
Absolutely. I agree.
Is there any player that you want to highlight that you think Tech needs to have a good game?
For Texas Tech, well, I would say somebody in the receiver. Caleb Douglas.
Yeah, he's been great lately.
And he was really good against West Virginia. You were talking about the red zone. You're going to need one of the receivers perhaps to step up down in that area. And he did. He kind of like a fade TD against West Virginia. It was a really nice play. Got it on the bounce.
Yeah.
And he's a tall receiver, 6'4", 215, 205, something like that. So he can be kind of a weapon down there. I think Terrence Carter is another guy who can do the same sort of thing. So you want to utilize both of those guys down in the red zone. It's probably not going to be too easy to just run the ball against BYU down in that territory. You have to throw it some successfully. So, that's a couple of guys to look at.
I think Terrence Carter is another guy I wanted to mention who was still kind of banged up in that BYU game, but is clearly healthier going into this game. And I think Terrence Carter is a huge difference maker on this offense, period. I think he's going to be he had 10 catches for 98 yards against West Virginia in the first half. I don't think he even played the second half. But moving forward, I think his importance is just only going to be a bigger and bigger deal for Texas Tech. Also, in going back and watching the Tech BYU game, the first game, look, Jack Kelly, I can't remember the other guy's name, but the other awesome inside linebacker they have next to Kelly, they're both fast, superb linebackers. I mean, those two guys are just studs.
Was it Isaiah Glasker?
Glasker, thank you. Yes. And they did a pretty good job hanging with the running backs out of the backfield early, actually better than I remembered when we watched it here at the Jones live. But in the second half, they wore down. And those running backs, offensive coordinator Mac Leftwich really hammered, really went to that matchup. And that's where Tech kind of how they move the ball in the second half. So it'll be interesting to watch that chess match because if you're BYU, you look at that matchup, again, one of their absolute strengths and makes them such a very good team, but then it's getting beat by one of Tech's strengths, at the end of the game when it really matters. So it'd be interesting to see what adjustments they make. And then Aaron Roderick went a lot of max protect with 7 guys when they had to throw, and they still couldn't block 4. How healthy is David Bailey? Are they going to be able to do that? Are they going to try and just spread it out more, kind of like you said? That chess match is going to be interesting. But in the end, I do believe, and we'll have our predictions later, but I do believe Tech is just a better football team.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this game will be closer than the first one. And there's going to be a lot of fingernail biting and hand wringing probably in maybe even the entire first half. But I do expect Texas Tech to pull away in the second half and win by a couple scores.
All right, 11 a.m. Saturday. I believe that game's on ABC there in Arlington at Jarret World. Texas Tech versus BYU for the Big 12 crown. Monty Joe, man, great stuff from you as always. Thank y'all for watching in. Until next time.